Everyone settle down. We are going to take a moment before we proceed to the next session and actually play a short tribute video for Poonam Kasturi, who was passionate about using design for changing systems. She was a visionary who made the Khamba. I don't know if you all heard of the Khamba, but for those of us in India, the Khamba is very special because she actually made that a household word with her magical formula, making composting popular much before it is right now. And this tribute that we are going to be playing for Poonam today is also our commitment that we will continue her legacy. So,
Poonam Kasturi, an inspiring name that revolutionized home composting in India. Poonam, an alumna of the National Institute of Design, started her journey with a simple yet powerful vision. In 2006, she founded Daily Dump, a venture to encourage household composting and reduce the burden on landfills. She designed a unique stackable terracotta pot system known as the Kamba, which made composting not only easy but stylish, connecting urban homes back to nature. Poonam's work brought a new level of awareness to waste management. Her design wasn't just about managing waste, it was about changing habits, making people feel responsible for the earth. Through Daily Dump, she helped over 70,000 families divert 65,000 kilos of organic waste every day, transforming the way people approach composting. Her impact even extended globally, with composting systems popping up in countries like Colombia, Germany, and Thailand. Her dedication earned her numerous accolades, including the Social Entrepreneur of the Year by the Schwab Foundation in 2015 and the Lexus Design Award in 2018. But her journey wasn't without challenges. Poonam struggled with lupus, a chronic autoimmune disease that impacted her health over the years. Despite this, her resilience never wavered. She shared her experiences candidly, reflecting on life, illness, and her work through her writings, leaving behind a legacy of strength and compassion. Her creativity and passion turned Daily Dump, Kamba, into a household name. Poonam's goal was never about being the biggest. It was about making composting a daily habit, as natural as brushing your teeth. As we remember Poonam, let's honor her vision, one that reconnects us to nature, reminds us of our responsibility, and inspires us to take small but impactful steps. Her spirit lives on in every home that composts and in every bit of organic waste that finds its way back to the earth thanks to her.
thank you. I think we'd just like to reiterate what she said, that waste is just a resource in the wrong place. And for her, I think composting was just a way of giving back to the earth. So with that, we would like to now move to the next panel, to our first panel, which is titled Organics and Climate. And may I please invite Ms. Kalyanee Paranjape from Chintan, who is going to be moderating this particular panel. Over to you, Kalyanee.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I had, a huge introduction planned, because this is the first session panel of the day. But while I was talking to my guests, I realized that what we need to do is bring sort of a reality check to everything that we are doing, bring our reality and imagination together, and see how we can get to a transformative approach towards building a zero waste community, towards building a zero waste society. Let me just give you a few numbers. According to the Global Management Outlook, the municipal solid waste is going to grow to 3.8 billion soon enough, by 2050, which is way, way after we are supposed to achieve our 2030 agenda. The hidden costs, as we all know, of waste, the impact on health, the impact on inequity, and things like that is too much. If that is taken into account, by 2050, it grows to 640 billion. That's almost double. Okay. And this is in terms of thinking about how much it's going to cost us. What we need to also see is how much methane, which when decomposes anaerobically in landfills, generates so much or has so much impact that it contributes to 1/3 of global warming. All these numbers should be helping us realize that it's time to rethink the ways we have been talking about this issue. So it's my great pleasure to start the panel on organics and climate, bring so many distinguished people together to talk about the imperative of the effect of methane, of the effect of waste on climate change. We need to confront the stark realities, but we also have a unique opportunity today here to do the same. I hope this first panel sets a very interactive tone for the next 2 days. Starts conversation between all of us about how we can build a just transition society, how we can bridge the gaps between policy, science, and community, and how we can all reflect on the conversations that we have in the next 1 hour and keep on continuing to have them when we go outside the 2 days of conference. Let me begin by inviting Froy to the stage. I think we have 4 panelists today. So we are going to go. Okay, Froy. Froy is a dedicated environmental justice campaigner who has helped over 20 Philippine cities, municipalities in enhancing their waste management programs. So welcome, Froy. Thank you for joining us today. Next, I would like to invite Professor Ahmed. Professor Ahmed is a prominent soil biologist and a member of the State Planning Commission, Tamil Nadu, actively involved in creating state policies for organic farming, land use, water, and waste management. And as he told me, I should mention pioneer of vermicomposting. Next we have on panel is Khate. Khate is an elected barangay councillor in Portero in Malabon City in Philippines, a zero waste community since 2014. She has been recently elected as the secretary of the Zero Waste Cities Network in Philippines. Khate brings valuable insights into community-led environmental initiatives. Thank you, Khate. And the last panelist we have is Savita Hiremath. Savita is the founder of Endlessly Green and a trustee of Solid Waste Management Roundtable, advocating for sustainable waste management in Bangalore. Thank you for joining us, Savita. All right. As I said, the aim is to bring different people from different backgrounds to start new conversations or to think about how to bring old topics to a new direction. So let me invite first Froy to give his presentation. I would request all the panelists to keep it to around 8 minutes so we have some time for Q&A with the audience.
Thank you so much. I don't think the podium is friendly for someone who's vertically challenged. So if I may, I'd like to use the microphone. So thank you again, and very excited and very honored to be part of this panel with these very distinguished speakers in this stage. So I have the honor of setting the stage of why we have to talk about organics and climate. No, we have been part of many events on organics management, or zero waste, and definitely there are a lot of events on climate. No, but we are being intentional in really connecting our zero waste work, our organics work, with our climate work. No, and that is why we wanted to focus this afternoon. Next. Yes. So you all are doing amazing work on the ground, and looking at the faces in front of me now, it feels like I'll be preaching to the choir. So please indulge me for the benefit of those following online and for those who are just looking at zero waste as a climate action. No, I would like to really set the stage. Next slide, please. Why is it critical? No, why is it important? We know from our study that 20% of methane emissions, which we know is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide, comes from landfills. No, this is based on the study. Second, next, 70% of all global greenhouse gas emissions are embedded in the life cycle of all the products that we use. No? So, meaning if we reduce the products that we use through zero waste, through better resource management, then as a consequence, we would be reducing the amount of greenhouse gases that is being produced, even prior to looking at end of pipe or waste management solutions. Next. So all of these numbers are part of a report that GAIA published about 2 years ago. We called it Zero Waste to Zero Emissions. And there are more numbers to show the connection between waste and climate, and why zero waste is an impactful climate action. And just to highlight one of these numbers, if we would be looking at zero waste as a focus for climate action, even if we're not overly ambitious, one action alone would be equivalent to removing 300 million cars in our roads annually. So imagine a world without 300 cars, and imagine the emissions that we avoided by then. Next. Why is this relevant for us? I think especially for Asians, but even for our friends from Africa here, I'm sure the numbers would be relevant. In many contexts, more than 50% or 60% of our waste are organics. And many of our communities, many of our cities are struggling in addressing this. But at the same time, while that is a challenge, that is also an opportunity. Simply by addressing our organics, would be removing or would be reducing our waste by, in some cases, 60 or 63%. Next. And the good thing is that many of us here in this room have been doing something magical already to address this. I call it magical because it really is a magical process. It's very simple, it's very efficient, and it's anyone could do it. And that's of course is composting. And from this report, again, we know that this is very impactful. I won't bore you with all the numbers, and I think the professor would be better suited to give you all the numbers later. And I just would like to you don't talk numbers, okay. um, then someone else in the next speakers would have to talk about numbers, because my role is to invite you to look at the report because there are amazing numbers there and it would be useful for our campaign. Again, our goal is that we're already doing zero waste, but many in the context only of waste management. In many cases, not in the context of climate action. Next. We will not be GAIA if we want to talk about this. No, what we've seen is that waste to energy or energy recovery is not an effective mitigation strategy. No, the moment you send organic waste into the landfill and assume that you could capture the methane from there, you've already lost the case, right? And we know as well that we produce more carbon dioxide. For every ton of plastic that we burn, we produce 1.43 tons of carbon dioxide. Again, more numbers in the report. Next. So in the report as well, we just not just highlight the numbers, but we looked at practical examples of what this could mean for our cities. Because many of us are doing national advocacy work, but also our implementation work is local, at the city level, at the ward level, or at the provincial or state level. So there are several case studies in the report all around the world. There are 2 from Asia, and I'd like to spotlight them. Next slide, please. So in Seoul, South Korea, we all have the impression that everyone is for incineration in Seoul. But when we actually had the chance to visit last month, what we realized is that that is not the case. Many of the communities are actually fighting increase in capacity for incineration, not only because they're concerned about their local communities, but really concerned about the broader issues around incineration, impact to health, impact to climate, and impact to the livelihood of waste workers and waste pickers who would be impacted by this. Next. Another story is Bandung, Indonesia. And in the next 2 days, we'll have several speakers from Bandung. So we'll hear more about the zero waste work there. So I'll leave it to the actual people who are leading the work there. Next. So how does zero waste help cities adapt to climate change? No, we've seen in many places, once you implement zero waste, once you have better and more complete door-to-door segregated collection, you immediately remove littering and clogged waterways. So again, this is a practical thing that we've seen. Flooding has been avoided in many zero waste cities. No, as a consequence, when there's less flooding, there's less stagnant water, there's less vector like mosquitoes who are bringing diseases. No, in the Philippines, dengue has been a common problem. We had one community that saw a 90% drop in dengue cases 1 year after implementing a zero waste program. No, and third, soil improvements from compost. Next. So what are the other benefits of going zero waste? No, again, everything is in the report. This is an invitation. We have environmental benefits, social benefits, better public health, for example, economic, more and better jobs. And last is strengthened institutions. No? In the Philippines, many of our local officials initially said that we are scared of forcing people to do door-to-door segregated collection because we might lose the votes. And what we realized is that leaders who did not implement the zero waste program in one city actually lost in the election after. And communities who had better programs got re-elected. Their leaders got re-elected because people saw that this is the consequence of political will. No? And all of this are happening in cities that are implementing zero waste program. Next. So we all know our zero waste hierarchy, and in terms of jobs, that's also the case. So there are more jobs on repair, for example, for every 10,000 tons of waste. No? We've done some calculations. For repair, that's 404 jobs. For recycling, 115. For remanufacturing, that's 55 jobs. For composting, that's 7 jobs. And in comparing it to incineration, you only need 2 jobs to process 10,000 tons of waste. And of course, more opportunities when you add redesigning, reducing, and reuse, no? Which is something that's being discussed right now in the context of the Global Plastics Treaty. Next. So to sum it up, just 3 things on the report that we want to highlight. Organic waste and plastic waste are big carbon emitters. The moment we reduce them, we reduce the carbon emission, even without the waste management aspect of it. Second, zero waste strategies are fast, cost-effective to reduce emissions. No? Many of you would be able to provide testaments on why this number 2 is really not just a vision or a goal, but something that we've seen in our communities already. And number 3, zero waste can offer a myriad of benefits like good jobs, clean air, and healthy soil. Next. So again, this is a report. The name of the report is Zero Waste to Zero Emissions. And we'd like to invite everyone to visit this link to read the full report and read on the other case studies. We also have one person here from Tanzania, from Dar es Salaam, who was also featured. So if you have questions on the African context, feel free to approach Shishikai over lunch. Next slide. And within GAIA, our members are working with many cities around Asia Pacific. These are just some of them. Cities in the Philippines, in Malaysia, of course, in India, in South Korea, in Indonesia, have been proving that zero waste is not only a goal, it's not only a vision, but it's something that we are seeing right now. Of course, we're also saying that zero waste is a process. So based on this, we've asked ourselves, where do we go from here? Where do we go from having all of these models? And how can we really elevate these examples to mainstream our work on zero waste? Next slide. And one of the things that GAIA and our members have been working on is to facilitate the establishment of the Zero Waste Cities Network. And Kate will tell us more about this network. But really, the idea here is that many of our zero waste programs are really very local, and we have local leaders who are champions of this, and we want them to be spokespeople. You want them to be the one to advocate for why zero waste work for the cities. Part of this work is, next slide, a project of the Zero Waste Cities Network, which is the Cities Methane Pledge. And the goal here is in places where national governments or federal governments are not able to make commitments to look at methane and to address methane, we would want local leaders, our mayors, our city officials, to step up and commit. No, and that is why this pledge was created. The goal is to reduce emissions from waste, methane emissions from waste by 70% by 2030. It's not overly ambitious because we know that simply by doing zero waste, simply by addressing our organic waste, we can achieve that 70% reduction of methane emissions. Next. So again, please look at the report, and our invitation for you is we've all been doing zero waste as a way to better manage our waste problem. But let's all be advocates for looking at zero waste also as meaningful climate action, because many of you are already doing it. Good morning and thank you.
Thank you, Froy. Next, I would like to invite Professor Ahmed to give us a presentation without the numbers. Thank you.
I don't believe in numbers here. There are so many numbers, and is that my presentation is, I think, over there. In fact, I'm surprised. Good morning to all of you. He said about landfills. To my knowledge, Asia, we don't have landfills at all. We just fill up the land. So you got to correct yourself, young man, right? I was asked to talk about this, carbon cycle. Next slide, please. The problem starts right from here, because I would appreciate if you can teach our children properly. We always classify into living and non-living. I think that's what we start with in the schools. We tell them air is non-living and we are living. But we forget to tell them that if you remove the non-living air from my body, I become non-living. This integration is never committed to the children, whether it's air or water or whatever components they are, right? These are the 5 components which we talk about. Next slide, please. Who is operating the slides? There, okay. If you had given a remote, we would have operated ourselves. Now, this is what happens normally. You know, like we start planting trees, we say that greenery is required for carbon cycle. Green cover is required, but green cover is a good word in English. But when you go into native language, like in Tamil, when I speak, I call it as pachai or pasumai, whether it's green or prosperous. All trees are not prosperous. What we do is the new names and new technologies like Miyawaki, you just put whatever you want. It's not the case. Endemic trees, the litter which falls down contributes to microbial organisms and the soil health. So, you know, like whenever you plant, see to it that you don't go in for a green cover, but for a prosperous cover. Next slide, please. This timing should not be taken into consideration. The changing of slide is taking more time. Now, plant these trees, which also have some amount of fruits in them, because birds get attracted. And when birds come over there and they eat, they also put their droppings over there. And that nourishes the soil to incorporate more microorganisms, which can take into carbon sequestration. So finally, we have to get absorbed carbon into it and not just try to do the way we want. Next slide, please. Oh my God. Hey, you could have used a PowerPoint. Why are you going into PDF? I have sent all the 3 forms. You're going to PDF. Right? I have sent them PowerPoint PPTX. I have sent them PPT. I have sent them PDF. Now, the organic matter content, which is actually gives nourishment to the soil, should be 2% to 5%. Our national average in India today is 0.15%. Similar in Malaysia. I have worked in Malaysia as well, right? And almost all the countries, Philippines also. You have lost everything over there. Right? So, you know, like all this decreasing. Tamil Nadu government says 0.68. I am from Tamil Nadu. I do research on soils. Our range is also 0.15 to 0.6. So they have given the highest value, but actually the values have gone down. Next slide, please. Move. Because there is no carbon over there, the nutrients have depleted in the soil. If the nutrients in the soil are depleted, the crops which are growing over there don't have nutrients in them. And instead of improving the soil, that is when a mother is pregnant, you got to take care of the mother, not of the baby. You don't inject food for the baby, right? So here, we don't take care of the soil. But what our governments are doing is, next slide, please. After harvesting, we'll take the rice. We'll powder the rice. We'll iron B6, B12 to it. We call it as fortified rice. And then we make it again in the form of a rice. We add 1 kg of this to 99 kgs and call it as fortified food. When the gut microflora is already not existing in the baby. Right? So somewhere we are faulting and we require carbon. So it is not waste management, it is resource management. So from today, GAIA, don't talk about waste management, talk about resource management. And resource management is this material. Next slide, please. I didn't want to go into the details because I have been working on this since 1978-79. I started my research in 78-79. So here you find, always remember that the more greener the leaf, the more nitrogen, and more drier, it's carbon. See to it that you take a range of less than around 25:1. Gives you wonderful yields, so don't worry about it. Don't relate to business. I find commercialization now coming into it. You buy this, then compost happens. Nothing, donkey. You bury me, I also get composted, right? So what you require is little bit of dung or little bit of, like ripened fruit juice or anything, or even curd, which is sour enough, has enough microorganisms to initiate. Next slide, please. That's a normal range for your idea. Please remember that if you use too much of animal material like fish waste, and it has more amount of nitrogen, so it will stink like ammonia. You got to add carbon to it. And if you are using excess carbon, like Asian countries have too much of coconut fiber and other things, you stop watching the watch. That lady, she keeps on looking at the watch. You should put such people in the monitoring system, I tell you. That's why our country is down in progress. Yeah, right? They don't watch while it should watch. Right? Dried leaves and other things, you should have enough amount of nitrogen added to it. Next slide, please. Next. Move. Right. Soil holds the largest part of nitrogen. Please remember that. Next. This is available. They can be circulated. You can read yourselves. And soil health takes you to productivity. Please don't, you don't use the term soil fertility anymore. Soil fertility is now related with fertilizers. It is soil health, which is the most important component, which includes the holistic approach, which includes the soil microorganisms, soil biota, which are able to recycle, take into carbon, and then sequester and give soil as a healthy soils. Next slide, please. They enhance biological productivity. I'm not going into my regular presentation with all the earthworms and everything. Next slide, please, because I may require an hour and they will not give me time. Next slide, next slide, next slide, next slide. Yeah. Please resort to mulching. The moment we say mulching, the world wants to use plastic mulch. And already microplastics have entered into the bloodstreams and also reported from the breast milk of human beings. So please try to convince people that my plastic mulch is not a mulch. Can slightly lift it, please, so that people can see it? Thank you. Right. Because that takes you to microorganisms and you can see here. Yeah. Mulch and rain and such. Yeah. This is what happens over here. Right. Next slide, please. This is my 50th year of teaching. So as a teacher, I can't keep quiet. Yeah. But this is what we do. Burning. And what happens to those things? Delhi already, Punjab has started burning now. The session has started. Next slide, please. This is the old traditional knowledge, wisdom. Slightly above, please. Slightly above. You could have used a PowerPoint, man. I sent you 3 versions. Why do you use this? I don't understand. You see, the traditional wisdom is when a paddy plant grows, the top is meant for the human consumption. The middle is meant for the cattle consumption. The bottom is supposed to be left in the roots, in the soil, so that it gets completely decomposed, microorganisms multiply. This wisdom we have lost. So bring back traditional organic farming through which we can go it. Government of Tamil Nadu has recently released an organic farming policy in which I was also one of the members contributing to it. Next slide, please. So don't call it as waste management, call it as resource management. Next. Yeah. The landfills, no, you call about methane production. Methane happens only when there is anaerobic decomposition. Please be very clear about it. And even many of these so-called compostings at home, people don't like to do it because it stinks. It stinks because it becomes anaerobic. So see to it that you stir it properly, create aerobic systems. You don't require a specific type of container. You just require something to hold the material. See to it that you stir it. See to it, you give some microorganisms, which are there are several sources of microorganisms which can do the job. Don't worry at all. Do whatever you want to do, but do it properly. Next. This reduces methane emissions, creates carbon-rich compost for the soil, produces energy through biogas process. Next. Yeah, these are the three most important things, components. Next. These are the benefits of the ecosystem. I would request the organizers to send this as attachment to all the participants. Next. Yeah, just thank you for the slide, not for me. Yeah. Because I still have time. I still have time. We talk about big industries. The biggest industry which creates all the pollution is what? Our household kitchens. Every household has a kitchen. Every kitchen produces organic waste. Every kitchen uses gas. Every kitchen uses some fuel. Every kitchen is producing. So first set right your house. And don't talk about zero. Don't talk about zero. There's no zero. You can never achieve zero. I have been to the best of countries which do solid waste management. They look beautiful in pictures and cinemas over here when Europe and US is projected. I have been to places in Europe, supposing Austria. Austria, I have been to the waste management site, which is one of the best countries. Only 70% of the waste is segregated. 30% goes to the incinerator, which goes as a mixed waste. And here begins the problem, because all Asian countries, especially who are working over here, our incinerators don't work at 1,000 to 1,200. The moment you put in the bin and then you switch on the incinerator, gradual heat rises, dioxins go into the environment, causes cancerous substances. So please be very careful about what you do. And the only thing I would say is to conclude. Na time aitama? No. She should be in cricket. The only beautiful word which I would request you all to remember is the word management. I hope we all know the spelling of the word management. Yes. Please pronounce that word without the last letter T. Manage, management. Men means not human being men. Men means all human beings. And now pronounce the same word without the last letter N. Manage, manage, manage. Learn to manage yourself. You can manage others. That is management. Thank you and good luck to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Next, I would like to invite Kate. Kate, we look forward to listening about the community initiatives in Philippines. You have 8 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, good morning. How are you all? You still good? Okay. So it is actually my second time here in India. My first time was in 2017. I was only a participant in learning about the amazing organics management here in India. And I was really inspired to continue zero waste work in our country. And now I am presenting in front of you all. My sister will be presenting our village captain or barangay captain. She will be presenting the work that we are doing in our barangay. But today I will be introducing to you the Zero Waste Cities Network Philippines. All right. Is my slide good? I've also submitted 3 versions. I hope one works. I hope the timer isn't running yet. Okay. So Zero Waste Cities Network Philippines. I'm sorry, Professor. My first slide is full of numbers. So first, I'm going to have a little background about the Philippines. Next slide, please. So the Philippines is an archipelago with 7,641 islands with 18 regions. It has 81 provinces, 145 cities, 1,489 municipalities, and more than 42,000 barangays. Barangays is the smallest political unit in our country. It is also called a ward here in India. Next. Next slide. You can also zoom. Can you also zoom in? Okay, so our population, we are more than 110 million people currently in the Philippines, and we are the 13th most populated country in the world. So overpopulation is really a problem for us. And with that comes the problem of poor waste management. So let's go back, next slide please. Let's go back to 20 years ago. There was an event that was a wake-up call for our government. So on July 10, 2000, there was what we call the Payatas tragedy. So Payatas is also a barangay in Metro Manila, or the National Capital Region. And inside Payatas, there are millions of people living there. There are also waste pickers. And there was a mountain of garbage, or a dump site. And in 2000, the mountain of garbage split into two, and the vast compost heap, a time bomb of methane gas, exploded. So more than 300 people were killed. And if you also look at on YouTube later, you can search this if you want to see the gruesome news that happened during that year. And next slide, please. Because of this tragedy, our government, our local legislators created a law called Republic Act 9003, or the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. So with this law, it mandates that every local government unit should have a systemic administration of waste. So that includes segregation of source, storage, treatment, and transfer, which do not harm the environment. And the barangay is in charge of implementing the segregation and collection of solid waste, specifically for biodegradable and recyclables. And the city or municipal handles the residuals and the toxic waste. And also, burning of waste is strictly prohibited because we have poor waste management. Some of our people in the Philippines, they just burn the waste, especially in the provinces. And that there should also be a budget for solid waste management in the national GAA, or General Appropriations Act. Next. So why build the Zero Waste Cities Network? Next slide. So can I have a show of hands who here has been to the Philippines? Can you raise your hand? Okay, there are some. And who has been in our barangay? Potrero Malabon. Okay, a few. So I'm sure you have noticed that there are a lot of basketball courts. Have you noticed? So I think in every barangay we have a lot of basketball courts, especially in our barangay. I think we have more than 20. Can you confirm? Next slide. Okay. So all of the barangays have basketball courts, but not all of the barangays have materials recovery facility, even though it is mandated by the law. So in our country, it is people put pressure on local government officials to have these basketball courts. They are angry if they cannot play, and even if there's flood, you can see we still love to play our favorite sport. And that picture was taken in my city, Malabon. You can see who flood, or what's flood, right? Next. And we are also growing. Zero waste cities in the Philippines are growing. So there are more than 50 zero waste cities, municipalities, and provinces in the Philippines, and more than 100 zero waste barangays. Next. So who are we? So the Zero Waste Cities Network Philippines was founded just 3 months ago on June 23, 2024 in Siquijor Island. And this is through the support of Mother Earth Foundation and Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, or GAIA. And our chairman is the vice governor for the leading zero waste island. And our president is the vice mayor of the leading zero waste city in the Philippines. Next. So there are 4 categories. All of us are elected officials, career officials, and appointed officials. These are from the provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. And this is the first Zero Waste Cities Network in the world. And we have more than 150 members currently, and we would like to grow it. Next. So our objective is to mainstream zero waste practices as the optimal solution to waste management problems such as reducing methane emissions so that the Payatas tragedy won't happen again, and also addressing the growing plastic pollution crisis. Next. So we also support the Philippine Zero Waste Strategy to achieve a zero waste Philippines by 2030. So it has 6 pillars, and it includes policy, model building, training, education, communications and advocacy, social enterprise and zero waste businesses, funding and movement building. Next. And we are also proud to say that it is in our constitutional bylaws that we have included the environmental justice principles that was created by different non-government organizations in 41 different countries. Next. So to put it simply, the Philippine Zero Waste Cities Network aims to foster a supportive community, share stories, and advocate for sustainable solutions. With emphasis on good governance, we can ensure that the rights of our communities are protected and that our environment is preserved for future generations. That is a quote from our current chairman, Honorable May Ling Quezon of Siquijor. Next. And so our next steps, we are currently producing a lot of resolutions, and these 3 are the most important. So number 1 is a resolution requesting the Climate Change Commission to integrate zero waste in our National Climate Action Plan and nationally determined contributions. Currently, there is solid waste management, but we want to strengthen it further. Number 2 is a resolution supporting the passage of the Magna Carta for waste workers. And number 3 is a resolution requesting allocation of budget to the National Solid Waste Fund in the General Appropriations Act because for 20 plus years, there's still no budget and we are pushing for them to include it. All right, next. Many of us are concerned about climate change and wonder how we can make a real difference. The good news is we already have the solution. Zero waste isn't just about managing waste. It's a powerful, direct climate action. And cities like us can lead the way. And with that, in behalf of the Zero Waste Cities Network, next slide. In behalf of the Zero Waste Cities Network Philippines, maraming salamat, and I hope that we have inspired you to also do the same in your countries. Again, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Kate, for that wonderful presentation and taking us to Philippines and helping us learn about the initiatives and the great work you're doing there. Now I would like to invite Savita to tell us about community engagement, hopefully the last piece that connects this panel together. All right.
Is it good afternoon or good morning still? Uh, so I come from a background wherein I began as a volunteer, okay? And I'm sure each one of you has been a volunteer in one way or the other, or an entrepreneur, interested in doing something different than just pursuing materialistic interest. So if you ask me, idealism is the best realism, right? Nothing works better than idealism. We may be called fools or whatever, but this book was entirely dedicated to all the wonderful volunteers in Bangalore who made something beautiful happen in their own communities. These can be looked at as very small achievements for somebody who's been in there, seen the better side of both, that is as a volunteer, as a consultant, as an evangelist, and now as an entrepreneur. I've seen every bit of everything right now. So before I just begin my presentation, I would like to read out from my book wherein this book is dedicated to all the volunteers. So here I have seen every one of us getting frustrated and losing even interest in what we are doing because society, our governments are built to ensure that failure happens. Okay, this is my this is the realization that I have. It's all geared towards failure. You try to bring sense into what they are doing, then they make sure that you're kept out. This has been the situation. But again, let me quote Viktor Frankl. He was the Holocaust survivor. No, he said between the moment when you are frustrated and when you have to react, there is a small, maybe like couple of seconds you get, and that is where you decide what kind of a human being you are going to be. How you respond to a situation is what makes you, right? So many of us volunteers have responded in such a way that we took it upon ourselves and guided our communities with the help of some other volunteers, and showed to the world that this is possible. That we have set an example wherein, yes, this is possible. We can do it within our homes, within our communities, offices, corporates, government institutions. Composting is possible everywhere. Wherever biodegradable waste is generated, composting can be made possible there. So I'm telling this is to the volunteers. The journey can frustrate you at times, especially if you find your enthusiasm being met with indifference, which happens quite often. Often, the gap between what you intend to do and how it gets interpreted in public are hardly ever the same. Some people within your community will understand that you are out to achieve, understand what you are out to achieve, and may even join hands with you, but they are almost always in the minority, making your job of convincing the rest to use public money, that is to set up a composting system, for a meaningful SWM setup, that much more difficult. Hang in there. Wrong interpretation tells us a lot more about the interpreter than the interpreted. After all, a volunteer's enthusiasm is a seedbed of activity rife with wrongs. We commit a lot of mistakes on the way, because everything is a first time for us, no? Whatever we were trying to do is a first time. So, a seedbed of activity rife with wrongs until it succeeds. It is always fraught with imponderables until the public sees with its own eyes the change you bring about in your own community, in your own city, in your own panchayat, in your own country. Okay? Nothing succeeds like success. Okay? So, composting. See, as I said, I began as a volunteer, and then I tried to set up a system in my community. I failed multiple times, six, 7 times. Many times it was a situation where I had to run out of the apartment because there was stink coming out of the composting unit. Okay, because I had gone wrong. So that has been the history, to put it short. So then here, composting, but still there is that engagement still going on with the communities. It's been my 14th year since I started doing this work. Please, next slide. This is also PDF. I can't blame it on you because I've sent only PDF. No, this is not the one. This is not the one. I've sent one more. It's just a very short one. Kalyanee, the one that I sent you last. Because these facts everybody knows. We are talking to already a well-informed audience here. So I didn't want to, again, go through the basics, but I want to tell you what is exactly happening in Bangalore right now. Yes, this is the city where, we have probably, because we don't have a definite number, we try to do a survey asking those communities which are already into composting to come and register themselves, so that we get an exact number of how many communities are into it. But we never got the response. Sometimes people become pretty lazy even to just enter their name. So anyway, so we don't have an exact number, but still I can tell with a great deal of confidence that this is one city which has the highest number of apartments and homes which are into composting. Okay, many people have been doing composting here in Bangalore, and this was there traditionally. Most of the houses would dig a pit and put their kitchen waste into it. If somebody has that carbon nitrogen sense, they would even throw in some dry leaves. This has been a tradition here, especially in Bangalore. You would see almost every house having at least a single plant. Okay, this has been the quintessential Kannadiga trait. to have at least one plant in the house and many plants around it if you have space. So we usually never get tired of growing plants and all that, especially in Bangalore. This is not it. Shall I? Anyway, I'll keep talking. So what has happened in Bangalore currently? See, first let me talk about the negatives because I'm a positive person. Just because we discuss negatives doesn't mean that makes me a negative person. I want to discuss negatives so that we can make a transition from one extreme to another. Negatives first, because what is happening is the myths about composting, that it is a stinky affair, it invites all kinds of maggots and insects and everything, continue to persist. There's no doubt about it. But organizations like Hasirudala, SWMRT, all of us, there are many more have come up. All of us have been able to bust those myths to a great extent and get people into composting, whether it is at home level or community level. But the number of people who still entertain these myths against those which have busted it, the gap is too much. Okay, we still have to convince a lot of people, and we are always swimming upstream because we often don't get any support from the government. Okay, the first thing they want to do is keep us out of those meetings. Okay, the thing is to reach out to people through social media. Luckily, there is an interface between us and the people, and we have exploited it to a great extent and have succeeded to a great extent as well. So the myths are persisting. Second thing is, any community that has more than 500 homes is very they are very wary of going into composting because of the same thing. And secondly, there are so many positives to composting. I'm not saying no to it. I would be the first person to talk about it very romantically. But the thing is, there are inherent drawbacks in the sense, when you want to do it right, it calls for a lot of space, which most of the apartments don't have. Secondly, it calls for continuous management, continuous engagement, staff management. All the volunteers have to go through their ego management between themselves. That is the biggest problem, and we are not ready to talk about these things in forums like this. See, no matter what we talk here, no matter how much we try to convince the government to do the job, finally everything boils down to the volunteers. Okay, at the ground level. So here, what happens is the volunteer group is the one that is either going to make it or break it. The management committee in that community is the one which is either going to make it or completely dismantle the composting systems. So, as sir very beautifully put it, it's management, or all of us humans, okay? Because when it comes to management, if you are a good manager, you will manage anything. Waste here is an ingredient that is given to you. If you are given some other ingredient, you will manage that well as well. Agree? So this is the problem here. They are wonderful managers and all that, but they get frustrated with the politics within the community, and most of them quit. I'm one of them. Okay, but I still keep, whenever they come to ask my inputs, I give it. But the moment you say, no, you're not doing right, they just don't like it. So most of the pioneers quit out of frustration. They don't want to get involved. Composting comes to a halt. And it waits for another committed volunteer to come and restart the whole process. This is the reality of life. Okay, we may be thinking it's all about waste. No, it is all about people. It is people management. It's not waste management. Okay, it is resource management, no doubt about it. But it takes the right kind of people in the right time to do this job. But I am one who believes that only one person should not be doing everything for any community. Everybody should be involved. Okay, everybody is responsible for their own waste, right? So these are some of the drawbacks that we are facing, and we have problems with contractor mafia, that private contractor mafia, which even threatens certain communities to not do a segregation and not do composting on their own premises. If they do, then whatever the unrecyclables there, which we can't recycle and do anything with it, they threaten that we will not take it out. This is a problem we face in Bangalore, okay? Even though this is a city which even started, which introduced the word composting, especially in situ composting, to the entire nation. We took this term to the we made sure that it entered the national discourse. We have contributed a lot to the solid waste management rules. Okay, thanks to Almitra madam, she did it single-handedly. So these are some of the negative points. My thing is not. I'll tell you whatever I remember. So this is where we are when it comes to the negative side of the story. The positive side is, yes, despite having the lack of support from government and all that, innovators have marched on. My guru is sitting here, Dr. Manoj. He's an innovator, a scientist. But people like him, individuals like him, have contributed a lot to the entire ecosystem. Okay, and we have been able to convince people that, okay, there are standardized solutions. Okay, yes, there are standardized solutions, and you can go for it, and you can do composting without having any worries about stinks and excess maggots and issues like that. Did you get that? Please move on. Yeah, move on. False. Please stay there. Please let me go back to the negative side. False solutions. We are all discussing it in GAIA and everything, and this is where we are facing the greatest, stumbling block. These machines, occupy very little space, and they are able to burn waste coming out of 1,000 homes at once at about 150 to 250 degrees. These are the biggest, stumbling block. We have created a huge amount of, awareness, bringing in the scientific perspective to the whole thing. Dr. Manoj has contributed a lot to it. Sir also, this is one problem that we are facing, and we have made some progress, no doubt about it, but misconceptions do persist, and they persist mainly because they are the builder's favorite. Okay, in Bangalore, space is such a commodity, such a precious commodity that builders would do everything to make sure that they don't waste the space that they have in the community that they're building. So this is a problem we are facing. And once the volunteers involvement within the community goes down, then what happens is segregation takes a hit, compliance takes a hit, then and most often composting becomes a very, very symbolic affair. Move on, please. Yeah, I talked about these composters. These are a major problem. Move on, please. Let's go to the positives. Yeah, that's my community. We got a very little patch of land, this much. For some reason, somehow it started. We started using our own compost coming from the kitchen and garden waste, and then we started a small vegetable patch. See, this is nothing. It's not a big, it's not going to solve everybody's hunger problem or even climate change, but it demonstrates a wonderful example of what can be done with the little resources that you have at your disposal. Okay, one, innovators I talked about, and small scale service providers, like there is something called Stone Soup and other organizations. Hasirudala and Sahas are big players, but there are also some small players. Dr. Manoj is also doing something, but not in Bangalore, in Kerala. They have all achieved marginal success, but more the credit goes to their perseverance more than anything else. Nobody is going to survive selling only composters or doing only composting service. We have to be doing something else so that we can pump in money from that end to this end. I'm doing that. Then comes, yes, some communities still march on. My community is doing composting, but not to my satisfaction. Still, we should be happy with that. 70-80% of the work is better than 100. 80% of something is better than 100% of nothing. So that's a good achievement already. Okay. Many communities are applying compost to their their ornamental gardens, and some have even grown small veggie patches, and some of them get even the children involved in the whole process. That's beautiful. Next. Yeah. So we in SWMRT, we have two flagship programs. One is Kalika Kendra, that is Swachhagraha Kalika Kendra, which is nothing but India's first composting learning center. Okay, we have it. If you guys can get some time, please go take a look at it. Where many people come and take a look at how composting can be done within the community, how it can be kept stink-free. There are ways to tackle all these problems, troubleshoot all these problems. And then SGCC, that is Swachhagraha Compost Connect, is is a campaign wherein we brought compost producers from apartments and farmers and other buyers within the city. We put them together in a WhatsApp group and we made sure that the sales happened. And we from SWMRT made sure that the seller, whoever is coming, is a verified seller. We made sure that their processes were correct. Okay, and the farmers got that compost and they were very happy with it. Okay, and so far we have been able to facilitate the sale of 400 tons of compost. As sir said, I'm not much into numbers. I'm sure Dr. Manoj will be able to do the calculation and tell us how much CO2 we have, and methane also, we have kept away from the landfills. And then comes, SGKK and myths surrounding. We've been able to bust. We will continue to bust. This is my home. And this is what I would like to really tell people, like, what can be achieved just by composting at home and growing your own garden. Because this was, I chose these plants mainly because the store which sells these exotic aromatic greens is very far away from my home. So I chose these ones, and I love to grow these in my balcony. It's barely this much. Yeah, next. This is the possibility I talked about. So this is our community patch, wherein again we started growing some aromatics, but there was enough space to grow other greens as well. And look at how many women got involved in this activity. Okay, these are all people living in a very high-end apartment. Okay, and some of them hadn't even grown one plant. All of them knew only one plant, money plant, nothing else. Okay. And some of them did not even know the names of different kinds of greens, methi, palak, and a couple of others, nothing else. So they learned a lot about different kinds of greens, especially the local greens, to which even I had to Google to find out the equivalent in English. Okay, so there was a lot of learning happening. Okay, and then next. So when they started doing it, it was in excess. Lots of greens were coming in. So the community started buying it from them. So they used the same money to buy the seeds again. Okay, this is how the activity went on. Look at all people of all ages are coming down to the vegetable patch to buy those vegetables from them. Not vegetables, I would say better greens, because not enough space to grow all kinds of vegetables. Next. And the sad part is, some silly issue within the community put an end to this whole thing. We fought so much to save it, saying that this is a most beautiful community engagement activity, but they still shut it down. So through SGCC, the Compost Connect campaign, we have been able to sell 400 plus tons of compost. Please sell. No, we don't make any money. We are not for profit. We only facilitate the sales between the two to make sure that the buyers get genuine compost. Okay, next. Look, that is the first one is my apartment. So this much compost is lying in most of the communities which are doing composting. There is excess compost sitting there. Okay, amazing. In 9 out of 10 cases, very good quality compost. This is how buyers come, load it up and go. Next. Again, see these farmers, they keep sending us these pictures saying like, I applied your compost and this is how my produce came out. These are farmers farming in the surrounding areas, and some of them inside Bangalore as well. Next. And can you play that?
Yeah, can we have the
this
video,
is a 12
please?
second video.
ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋ ಗೊಬ್ಬರ ಹಾಕಿ ಅರ್ಧ ಎಕರೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ರಾಗಿ ಇದೆ. ನಮ್ಮ ರಾಗಿ ಯಾವ ಥರ ಬೆಳೆದಿದೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಇದೇ ಥರ ಗೊಬ್ಬರ ತಂದ್ಕೊಡಿ, ನಾವು ವ್ಯವಸಾಯ ಮಾಡಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಬೆಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ನಿಮಗೆ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸು.
What she say? She was into chemical farming. Her family was into chemical farming for many generations. Okay, they did not. They probably, they never took the trouble of doing composting and applying it to the fields. So somehow one NGO made sure that it got compost for her from one of our apartments. and then gave it to her. It's in Ramnagar. It's about 5 kilometers from the end of the city. And she says in that, look at how my ragi, that's finger millet, has grown. Okay, we applied your compost to it. Keep sending your compost and we will keep growing ragi for you and send it to you. Thanks to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Savita, for specifically because you drew from all your years of observation, went into the challenges, and then gave us the positive side as well.
I think it's time to turn the light towards our wonderful audience, all the sustainability and zero waste advocates sitting right here. And if you have any questions for the panel, we would like you to raise them now. I think we have overshot on time, but I would request that we have at least 10 to 15 minutes. Please keep your questions short and give our panelists the time to have the discussion. Yes, I think we have one hand there, please. Okay.
Hello everyone. So this is Rajesh from Waste Warriors. My question is to Professor Ahmed and Freud. So like here we're talking about zero waste, right? And Professor Ahmed mentioned there is nothing like zero waste. So we just wanted to, I just wanted to understand the definition of zero waste according to you and according to Freud also. Thank you so much.
No, I have no definition for zero because zero can be your aim, but reaching zero is impossible anywhere in the world at this point of time. Let us be realistic. Zero can be a sort of an ambition. Zero is not a reality. That is what I wanted to clear. Because many people, when they want to do composting, they get disappointed because they're not able to achieve zero. Don't expect zero. This is my request.
Right. So, Freud.
Yeah, so two things. There's a definition that's accepted by many activists, and we could share that. But just to build on what was said, zero waste is really a goal. There's no city right now that is technically zero waste. But it doesn't mean that no city can be zero waste in the future. Because if you all say that it's not possible, then we won't be working for it. Right? Many cities, some cities have achieved 83% waste diversion. It's not 100%, but it's 83%. And that is why zero waste is about looking at everything. Composting is one part of it. Composting alone will not bring us to zero waste. We have to reduce, you have to eliminate single-use plastic, you have to redesign, you have to eliminate some of the products. So zero waste is all of that. But if you're looking at technical definition, there's many that are being used, but for GAIA, there's three things that we have to consider. One, there's no burning, there's no burying, and whatever we're doing is good for the people and the planet. And incineration, landfilling, and all of that are not zero waste. There's no such thing as zero waste to landfill, right? Or incineration is zero waste because there's nothing after. That's not true. They're all lies. So there is an accepted definition, but in terms of the principles, it should be those three things. And again, it's the vision that we all share and that we're all working together at this point.
Okay, it's me. I would like to ask a question to Professor Sultan and Ms. Savita. For Professor Sultan, is there any place for fermentation in aerobic composting system? Is it any place for fermentation in aerobic composting system? Yeah.
Yeah, you see, normally when you create a pipe for aerobic compost, somebody setting up a windrow, there is a possibility there can be some pockets which get compacted. Like for example, in Asian food, most of the rice is cooked rice. So if supposing suddenly cooked rice goes into a particular position in a windrow, there can be compaction, there can be an anaerobicity, that alone can stick. There's a reason in aerobic composting, it is better that you do 1 or 2 turnovers so that you are able to aerate them properly. Because in aerobic composting, you produce carbon dioxide, water, heat. In anaerobic, you produce methane, hydrogen sulfide, and related gases. So they stink. You would have seen in our countries where there's a pile of waste. When you walk that side, there won't be much smell. Slight stink will be there. But the moment the municipality van comes, digs it, you get the entire stink. That is because it is aerobic on the outside, it is anaerobic inside. That's the way.
Okay, thank you. For Ms. Savita, how do you start the community movement? How do you advocate the importance of using composting in home or growing your food in home?
See, we are continuously on the social media, okay, where we tell people the benefits of using compost, okay, putting focus on 4 M's, that is microbes, matter, that is organic matter, moisture, and mulch. So this is our formula whenever we take our message to the people, and we also try to simplify the processes, okay, because doing composting in a farmland or even at a city level is very different out in the when it is out in the open. But when you bring it to a physically controlled environment like an apartment or a home, the dynamics change significantly. Okay, there is going to be a smell problem and stuff, and there are people who don't want to even do raking. They don't want to rake it up. They don't want to turn the pile and all those things. For that reason, where standardized solutions do work, no doubt about it. Some people simply they want to do it. For instance, I know a Bollywood celebrity. She's a very well-known singer, and she has 8 to 10 composters sitting because she loves to do composting. Okay, so for those people who are ready to spend to have a proper, it's a sustainable system only. When they want to have a real good system, it should be made available to them. That is my idea. So once we are able to simplify the processes and tell them, people, look, there is a way you can avoid a bad smell. Bad smell comes for a reason. When you are doing when you get the recipe right, there is no room for bad smell. Instead of calling it even slight stink, I would call it unfamiliar smell. Okay, it is just unfamiliar. For me, it is not stink. Okay, this is where we try to educate people and tell them what can come out of your garden when you start applying compost. So I usually take these photographs and show them, look, this is a possibility. Okay, this can happen.
One thing I would like to add to her, this composters, they have brought in a 7-day composter as well as a 24-hour composter. So this 24-hour composter fellow, when he came to me, I asked him whether he was born in 10 minutes or in 10 months. Because it's all volume reduction. If the material is not compost, you cannot call it as compost.
To Froy, I don't know, can you hear me?
I think we just have
Yeah. To Froy, in your pyramid, which is, I think, something we all deeply imbibe, among all the R words, the one word I find is often missing, and I request we add back, because unfortunately it doesn't start with R, it gets missed out, is the word maintain, to extend life of product. So we talk about reducing, reusing, repairing. Before repair, I think maintain. So that's a quick observation here. To each of us, whichever cities we belong to, I want to talk about Poonam's legacy and her dream was that every home, like you have a fridge or a washing machine, must have a composter. I think all of us in this room must be diehard composters and spreading that infection. How can we make it mandatory and not the 74-hour or the 24-hour kind of magic composter which dehydrates? But if builders are building playgrounds and they're building rainwater harvesting, which is mandatory, why can't proper composting become part of it? And if we can at a policy level push for that, because we all know composting is so powerful. So
Is suppose that mandatorily they have to keep space aside for what is it called, waste management, including dry waste management, which is plastic, paper, and all those things. Okay, and the reject waste, the biohazardous waste has to be sent for incineration to designated government incinerators, not like these 24-hour nonsense. No, compost is supposed. Compost has to be mandatorily processed in situ. We have all the rules, but the builders know how to take shortcuts. Okay, that is where this machine has come and sat down, because it occupies very little space. They don't have to keep aside a lot of space for composting. So those communities which have already got this particular composter, many of them have junked it in a corner. Okay, because they know what is, and it was how much, 25 to 30,000 rupees of power bills per month to burn about 200 kg of waste. I have done case studies. False solutions, me, Dr. Manoj, and some people in the SWMRT, we started this fight in 2014. Not now. Since 2014, we have been fighting. We have been silenced. One guy has, shut down his unit because he started getting a lot of negative feedback, right? So there is a progress, but the thing is, 24-hour they are not composters. They are basically glorified incinerators. They still are ruling the roost because the builders are supporting it. And there is no way we can reach out to those builders. At least we don't know.
My only humble suggestion is those who are having STP, sewage treatment plant, just mix that sludge along with your organic waste, you get lovely compost. You don't need to depend on anything else. Please follow it. Thank you, everyone. Because they're not able to hear you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I think we are all aware now that there are local solutions. This has become a global priority, but we need to build some teeth into the strategy and the policies that are taking place. A wonderful round of applause, please, once again for my panel. And we apologize we could not have more people asking questions, but you can catch hold of them during the networking sessions. Thank you.
Thank you. May I please request the panelists to stay on stage? We have a small token of appreciation. And while that's Archana, please come forward. And thank you so much, Kalyanee, for moderating this session. But before you all go, we also have another launch.